Welcome to another Spotlight interview. I'm Leah Avery. Today my special guest is the 2014 WNBA Sixth Woman of the Year and Chicago Sky guard, Allie Quigley. It's a pleasure to have you in this studio today.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. So can you give us a little bit about your background?
Well, I'm from Joliet, right down the street, and went to Joliet Catholic for high school, went to DePaul. Both my parents went to USF, and now my sister is the head women's basketball coach, so I've been around this school a long time, and it's very special to our family.
So how was it playing alongside your sister Sam at DePaul?
It was a lot of fun. I mean, we played with each other ever since we were younger, outside in the backyard, high school, grade school, and it was pretty special that we could share those years in college together.
So in college, you received several accolades for being a great student as well as a great athlete. How hard was it to keep your grades intact?
It was tough sometimes just because our schedule was so demanding, but ever since a young age, my parents really instilled in us that school was the most important, and I think that I always tried to get my work done right away. I didn't, procrastinate too much, so just always try to get it done right away.
So did you have a tutor while you were in college?
Sometimes, yeah, for certain classes, and we had study table hours that we had to do, and things like that. So, I was always in the study table trying to get everything done, and if I had my problems, I'd obviously see a tutor.
The concept of study tables sounds so familiar.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure Sam took a lot of things we did at DePaul and brought him here to USF.
Yeah, I'm sure she did. So, what was your most memorable game or most memorable moment at DePaul?
I think it was definitely when we went to the Sweet 16. That year we got to host the NCAA tournament, so we got to be home in front of our fans, and it was just a great experience. It was the first time DePaul's ever been to the Sweet 16, so we got to make history and do it at home. It was amazing.
So you're being quite humble here, but you almost had a 40-point game, correct?
Almost, not quite, but almost.
38 points. What was going through your mind during that game? Like, your mojo was just...
Yeah, it's just one of those games when everything you're throwing up is going in, and you just feel open the second you go over half court. So just one of those games. We played Rutgers. It was a home game, and we had never beat them, so it was awesome. It was one of the best games I've ever had.
So how did your journey to the WNBA begin?
I got drafted by the Seattle Storm coming out of college. I was there for their training camp for a couple weeks, and right when they had to make the decision, I ended up getting cut. I thought, oh my God, my career's over. And then, that night, the Phoenix Mercury called me, and I ended up playing there for that summer and the next summer. Then I bounced around a little bit, went to San Antonio, Indiana, back to Seattle, and then finally, luckily, I got picked up by Chicago last summer, and I've been there ever since.
So how was it playing your first year in the WNBA? How different was that from playing in college?
It's just a whole nother level of athletes, of basketball minds, physicality, everything. It's just a big jump, and I think maybe I really wasn't ready for it, and I struggled a little bit early on, and you're around so many great players and great coaches, so you just have to learn and take that experience with you.
So as you previously said, you jumped around from team to team, but now you're here with the Chicago Sky. Do you think that you found a home here with the Sky?
I hope so. It's a dream come true to be able to, number one, play in the WNBA, and number two, be at home when, every single game my parents can come to, my family and friends, so it's been a dream come true.
So what did you do differently from last year to this year? Because your stats, they tell the story. Your minutes almost doubled and your points doubled. So what did you do in that off season?
I think I just continued to work hard and work on my weaknesses, continue doing the things I was good at, practice my shooting and, whatnot. But I think that it was just one of those things where everything kind of came together. I got the opportunity, all the hard work kind of paid off, and it all just perfect storm, really, that I got the opportunity and was able to, do something with the minutes I got.
So how surreal was it to find out that you were named the Sixth Woman of the Year?
It was crazy because, starting the year, I didn't think, I'm going to try to get the Sixth Woman of the Year award. It was just kind of something that happened. We had some injuries, so I got some more playing time, and, one good game kind of led to the next. And, when they started talking about it at the end of the year, it, felt really humbling, and it just made me think about all the years that I struggled, the ups and downs, and, how far I came. So it was really, really cool to be able to do that.
It seems like all the struggles were worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
How was it playing in the WNBA finals?
It was amazing. I think that, for those of you who didn't watch us this year, we really struggled. We kind of were up and down all year. We'd, play a really good game and then lose two, get a good win, lose a couple more, and it was just we never got a rhythm. And I think that at the end of the year, we just everything clicked. We were healthy, and so it just felt like a surreal ride, an amazing ride just to be on at the end of the year. And, we came up short, didn't win, but I think that we played hard and we have a lot of potential for the coming years.
Well, technically you did win the Eastern Conference. You're the Eastern Conference champ, so you did win in a way.
Yeah, that was amazing. We struggled with Indiana, in the past, never really getting those big wins against them, so it was awesome to be able to beat them on their home court too and, be the best team in the East.
So which player was the hardest person to overcome in the finals? I know Brittany Griner, she was a force in the paint, so would it be her?
I would say she changed the game the most because, we were so used to being able to, dribble in the paint, make certain passes and layups that we, normally could make all year long. She changes it because she's 6'8" and she's so long. But, I think Diana Taurasi is one player that, is really hard to overcome. She's got all the skill in the world. She's the best player in the world, and she's got the attitude to go along with it. So she's really tough.
Yes, she is. She's amazing. I love to watch her play.
Yeah.
So let's talk about you going overseas. How different is it playing from overseas to here?
It's a lot different. I think a lot of people go over there and you play a lot more minutes. The league isn't as strong as here in the WNBA. The gyms, the arenas are a lot smaller too. If you've watched European soccer games, they do those kind of chants in the crowd, so the whole atmosphere is a little bit different, but it's a lot of fun. Obviously the language is different, so that's another difference. So it's got, its perks and, whatnot, more playing time, but I think I definitely prefer to play here.
So how hard is it to be in another country? Like, do you have to hire an interpreter?
No, a lot of the players that go to China and Japan have to hire interpreters because there's not as much English, but where I play in, Middle Europe, like Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, a lot of places are Americanized and they have English. The coaches, conduct practice in English, so it's not too much of a struggle.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
So, give us a fun fact about yourself.
A fun fact. Speaking of Europe, I would say that it's a fun fact that I've played in probably 15 to 20 countries and can say hello in about 7 or 8 different languages, I would say.
Really? Go for it.
Put me on the spot?
Go for it.
Okay, Spanish, obviously, hola. Turkish, merhaba. Poland, cześć. Hungarian, szia. Now I'm going blank. In Serbian, it's just halo. That's about all I can remember right now, but that was about 5.
Yeah, that's 4 more languages than I know. I know
Yeah.
Ola, so.
That's about it.
Yeah, you got me. You have me beat. So, was there ever a time in your career that you felt that you wanted to quit basketball?
Not necessarily quit, but I think there was a time when I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll just do the whole European basketball and have my summers off. I was tired of, jumping around different WNBA teams and being away from my family. I was already away 7 months overseas, and then, being away for not really playing too much in the WNBA. So I thought maybe I would stop that, and then Chicago called last summer, and I thought, okay, this is my hometown. I'm going to give it a shot, give it all I got, and, thankfully it worked out.
Have you had any injuries that set you back at all throughout your career?
Nothing too serious. In college, I had a knee surgery, but just a scope, just to, clean things out, nothing too serious. So I've been lucky, and that's kind of a huge thing about being able to have a good career, just staying healthy.
Yeah, quite lucky.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to any woman who wants to go into the WNBA?
I would just say hard work, and there's going to be a lot of times when you're going to have setbacks, but just not to give up and keep working hard, because sometimes circumstances don't, let you have success right away. Numbers, opportunity. You just gotta, if it's what your dream is, you just gotta keep working hard and not give up.
Previously, you stated that you worked on your shortcomings, and that's how you doubled your playing time and things of that nature. So what would you tell a person or basketball player who wants to be the best that they can be?
I would say, whatever your strength is, if it's shooting, if it's rebounding, focus on that. Let that be your strength. You don't want to become too much out of yourself, but at the same time, work on your weaknesses. I remember I could barely dribble the ball in college. I was kind of just a shooter. And then the older I got, they wanted to make me a point guard, and I'd be terrified to dribble the ball. So you just got to work on your weaknesses. You got to, even if it's uncomfortable, you got to start getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. So I would just say to, work on your weaknesses and, continue working on your strengths too.
And practice is the place for you to get very comfortable with your weaknesses.
Yeah.
Because your teammates will always have your back, right?
Obviously, yeah, of course. And I think that's where you get a lot of your confidence is from all the hard work you've done. A lot of people really aren't that confident because they know, I haven't really done anything to, get better. So the more you work, I think the more confident you get.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I'm Leah Avery, and that was another Spotlight interview.